Welcome to Alberti Sleeper State Park.
Sleeper State Park is named for former Governor Albert Sleeper, who was famous for signing into law the statute that actually created all the state parks in 1919. He was a resident of Huron County, which is where the park is located, and it was a tribute to him that they renamed this park after him.
Yeah, it was originally Huron State Park, which it originally started as a county park. I think we found out when we looked it up. And then in 25, it was still a county park, and that's when the state acquired the land. Then I think
2 years later, it became a state park.
Yeah, okay. So 25, it was a county park when the state bought the land. About 700 acres are here. And then in 27, it became Huron State Park. And then I think it was in the 40s when it actually got renamed for Albert Sleeper because he was from this area.
Today you can find a campground, a day use area with a beach. When there is a beach, the water level is up already now, but normally it's a big sand dune with a nice beach. There are a variety of trails out here through the woodland area.
Just a few miles, maybe 3 to 4 miles, we think.
Yeah, but it looks pretty nice. We've seen deer already and some chipmunks and squirrels, so there's definitely wildlife watching out here.
And mosquitoes. It's a wetland area, so there will be mosquitoes.
I mean, for the vast amount of acreage, it's actually a pretty small park. There's not a whole lot to do here other than the campground and the beach, but that's the draw. That's the whole reason people come here is to hang out at the beach, which is actually right across the road. So you do need to either take the
Overpass? Pedestrian overpass.
There's a pedestrian overpass. It is not ADA friendly, though. It's a set of stairs and over. But you can also drive over or just walk across the road if it's not busy.
Right. Yeah, this is one of those parks where it's split. Day use area is across the road from where the campground is located. The day use area has a lot of parking. I'm assuming when there is a beach, it's pretty busy there.
Yeah, and hot times in the summer. It's a pretty popular place.
Yeah, and as we've been seeing, both Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, I think all the Great Lakes right now, the water level is really high. So there's not much left of some of these beaches that are out here. But it clearly is a big draw at times because of the size of the parking lot alone.
Well, there used to be a beach here. Yeah, we got some sand left, I guess.
Under the water.
Under the water. So if you like that kind of a beach, you're good. There was a railing. Hey, that didn't stop the kids that we saw today playing out in the water. I mean, the waves were up, so that's always, kids love waves, right? So, I mean, I love waves. So today's the perfect weather actually to be out there, and I don't think it was too cold because we're actually, at this part of Lake Huron, it's really Saginaw Bay, so it's a little bit shallower and more protected. So I think the water's going to be slightly warmer than maybe Lake Huron itself.
You and I have different definitions of warm water, but sure. Yeah, I like how the kids were out playing in the water and the dad was sitting on the beach in his hooded sweatshirt with the hood up. But, you know, whatever. So yeah, I mean, it's a not a real big park in terms of footprint. It's kind of packed in. It is next to a state game area, so there is more state land around it, but the park itself is that 700 acres packed into the campground and into the day use area. The campground at Sleeper State Park is broken into 2 separate loops, but they're very similar, at least they seem that way. It's much like we saw at Port Crescent, narrow roads, kind of an older park, and the sites are a lot of different sizes. And again, I think it's because of the way they kind of built them in and around the trees, which is cool. But if you have a large modern rig, you're gonna have to check with rangers and see what site is gonna work best for you.
And specifically because there are no paved sites here whatsoever. It's all grass and it's all 20-30 amps. So definitely an older campground that hasn't been upgraded at all. And it is nice because there are a lot of trees, so it is in the woods. But also noticed that a few of the sites that back up right to the woods have standing water behind their site. And as we drove through today, we could tell some of them were very muddy and your trailer might have issues in some places, different times of the year. So keep that in mind. We noticed there were a lot of pop-ups and tents that seem to be popular in this park, but as well as some of the larger units as well. So you can fit a little variety in here. But yeah, just again, make sure you pay attention to the pictures on the DNR site when you go to book and what length and size, because it is going to make a difference here.
Yeah, and even if they don't have pictures, because not all the state park sites have pictures up yet, make sure they usually have information on how long and wide the site is. But that's also something to keep in mind here is that because of the terrain, it looks like quite a few needed a lot of leveling. So
Mm-hmm.
it depends on the size of the site and where it's at. Some of the sites people were pulled in sideways because of the size of their rig. You just kind of make it work sometimes. It is one of the older parks, but I mean, it's one of those where it's neat because it's still got a lot of trees.
Yeah.
That's what we like, but you got to deal with that a little bit.
And the road, I think the one thing I noticed that the roads themselves in each row are super narrow. I mean, very much just the width of a vehicle and a trailer. And some of these larger trailers are getting to be pretty massive. So just pay attention and be very cautious because people are parked along the road. That's where their site is. So just as you're going through, you're maneuvering to get in and out of a site could be a little bit challenging. But we
Yeah.
really like the older parks. I mean, I think it's nice that they've still kept them in their, as much of their original condition as possible, just to preserve the history of the park.
Yeah, I would say just plan to be patient because someone ahead of you may be taking some time to back into a site. You may need that time to back into a site. Maybe make friends with your neighbor right away and see if you can work together. That might be necessary, but yeah, it's kind of a cool place. Seems kind of quiet to just hang out. So if you find yourself near the tip of Michigan's thumb, you have several options for state parks. You have two that have campgrounds. Here we have Sleeper and then Port Crescent, and then you also have the Petroglyphs and Sanilac.
Right. And the two campgrounds are only, well, Sleeper and Crescent are only 8 miles apart. So pretty near to each other. You've got beaches at both of them, the day use and the camping. And then the petroglyphs are only maybe a half hour away from both parks. So definitely a good activity. If you're already in the area, please go visit the petroglyphs. They are really cool. They don't get as many visitors. They do get quite a few, but not as many visitors as the rest of the parks. So please go check it out. But there are quite a few little towns around the area. So support your local restaurants and the corner stores for your gas and food and ice and all that kind of stuff, just because it is important to support the economies of the areas that you're visiting in the state. So if you do choose to come to the Thumb, which I think you should because it's a different part of the state that not a lot of people get to, you've definitely got your choices, but there is a lot to do here, so make sure that you get out and see what the different parks have to offer and just keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there.